For years, they were the untouchable exception to the sister wives rule. While the rest of the Brown family fractured into bitter, warring factions, Mykelti and Tony Padron proudly paraded themselves as the ultimate neutral ground. They were the Switzerland of the family, boasting about their exclusive access to Kody and Robin, and happily charging eager fans a premium on Patreon to hear all the juicy behind-the-scenes gossip. It was a brilliant, highly lucrative grift until the ultimate self-own brought their empire crashing down. In a spectacular slip-up, Mykelti accidentally revealed a truth she had been desperately trying to hide, proving that Kody hadn't just distanced himself, he had completely discarded her too. If you want to know how the ultimate insider became the ultimate outsider, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because we are diving deep into the shocking collapse of Mykelti and Tony's Patreon empire. The illusion of access is a highly profitable commodity, and for a long time, Mykelti and Tony Padron knew exactly how to sell it. When the Brown family structure completely disintegrated, most of the adult children chose sides, naturally gravitating toward their biological mothers and distancing themselves from Kody and his sole remaining wife, Robin. But Mykelti saw a different path, one paved with both emotional leverage and financial opportunity. She positioned herself as the family peacemaker, the one child who refused to cut ties with her father. To the public, it looked like a noble, albeit frustrating, attempt to keep the family from completely shattering. But behind a paywall, it was a totally different story. Insider reports suggest that Mykelti and Tony quickly realized their continued proximity to the most despised reality TV couple in America was a gold mine. They launched a Patreon, charging fans a monthly fee for the promise of raw truth. They weren't just reacting to the show, they were selling real-time updates on Kody's mood, Robin's reactions, and the private conversations that the TLC cameras never captured. For a while, the strategy worked flawlessly. Fans flocked to their subscription tiers, eager to hear what was really happening on Coyote Pass. The Padrons built a mini empire on the premise that they were the ultimate insiders. They would casually drop details about visiting Kody and Robin, offering a sanitized but still revealing glimpse into the couple's heavily guarded lives. But there was always a glaring flaw in their business model. To keep the subscribers paying, they needed a constant supply of fresh, exclusive information. And to get that information, they needed Kody and Robin to trust them. It was a dangerous tightrope walk. They were actively monetizing their relationship with a man known for his deep paranoia and demand for absolute loyalty. Rumors suggest that Kody was entirely aware of their side hustle, initially tolerating it because Mykelti's spin often painted him in a slightly more sympathetic light than the actual show did. But as the family drama escalated, particularly following devastating real-life tragedies within the family, the dynamic shifted drastically. Kody began closing his ranks, and the flow of information to Mykelti started to dry up. The first major crack in the facade appeared shortly after Mykelti and Tony announced their sudden, highly publicized move to North Carolina. Publicly, the couple claimed the cross-country relocation was simply for a change of scenery and to be closer to her sister Maddie. However, exclusive theories began circulating within reality TV gossip circles that the move was actually a desperate retreat. Reports claim that the tension in Arizona and Utah had become unbearable, with both sides of the family growing increasingly suspicious of Mykelti's motives. Christine's children allegedly felt that anything they confided in Mykelti would inevitably end up as a bullet point on her next Patreon live stream. Meanwhile, Kody and Robin had reportedly grown entirely paranoid that their private moments were being harvested for content. By moving to North Carolina, Mykelti and Tony physically distanced distance themselves from the source of their income, hoping they could coast on their established reputation as the chosen ones. But distance doesn't just sever physical ties, it exposes the reality of where relationships truly stand. The defining moment of their empire's collapse didn't happen in a massive, dramatic confrontation. It happened entirely by accident, disguised as a casual complaint on a podcast. During a revealing interview, Mykelti and Tony were discussing the current state of the family when Mykelti made a massive, unforced error. She slipped up and revealed that Kody had recently traveled all the way from Arizona to North Carolina to film an on-camera conversation with his ex-wife, Janelle. North Carolina is the exact state where Mykelti, Tony, and their children had just relocated. Yet, as Mykelti bitterly admitted, her father made zero effort to contact her. There was no phone call, no text message, no attempt to swing by and see his grandchildren. He was in their literal backyard and he completely ignored them. She accidentally proved the very thing she had sworn wasn't true. She hadn't just lost a bit of her insider access. Kody had entirely discarded her. This slip-up was the ultimate self-own. In her desperate attempt to paint Kody as a neglectful father and gather sympathy, she forgot the core foundation of her own business model. The moment those words left her mouth, her paying subscribers experienced a massive reality check. The realization hit the fandom like a shockwave. If Kody wouldn't even send a text message to his supposed favorite daughter when he was in the same state, then he certainly wasn't sharing deep, dark family secrets with her over the phone. The veil was lifted and the subscribers realized they were paying a premium for an illusion. Mykelti had inadvertently cornered herself in an impossible double bind. She now had to choose between two equally disastrous options. She either had to look straight into the camera and admit to her paying audience that she had been completely cut off and no longer had any insider scoop, or she had to start fabricating stories, passing off speculation as absolute fact just to keep the money rolling in. The stakes skyrocketed almost overnight. We aren't just talking about a bruised ego. Tens of thousands of dollars in annual Patreon revenue were suddenly on the line. Insider reports claim that the subscriber drop-off was immediate and severe once the podcast aired. Fans who had eagerly handed over $10 a month realized they were financing a fantasy. The lucrative insider empire that Mykelti and Tony had so carefully constructed was crumbling because the very product they were selling, access to Kody, was demonstrably gone. And what happened next would only make the situation infinitely worse, completely shattering whatever remaining credibility the couple clung to. If Mykelti's podcast slip-up was the initial tremor that cracked the foundation of their subscription empire, Tony Padron was the one who unwittingly triggered the full-scale earthquake. The definitive knockout blow to their credibility didn't come from a dramatic confrontation or a leaked text message. It came wrapped in a bow, completely ignored, and casually mentioned in passing. During a subsequent live stream, while desperately trying to maintain the illusion that they were still in Kody and Robin's good graces, Tony casually brought up the holidays. He nonchalantly mentioned that they had put together a deeply personal, painstakingly crafted Christmas scrapbook filled with photos of their children and sent it to Kody and Robin as a peace offering and a festive gesture. For a family that claims to value physical memories and emotional connection above all else, a handmade scrapbook from grandchildren should have been the ultimate icebreaker. But Tony, in a moment of stunning lack of self-awareness, let slip the devastating reality. The gift was met with absolute, deafening silence. There was no thank you text. There was no reciprocal gift. There wasn't even a basic acknowledgement that the package had been received. Kody and Robin had completely ghosted them. The casual nature of Tony's admission is what made it so destructive. He tossed the information out out there as if it were just a minor family quirk, entirely missing the catastrophic implications it held for their business model. For the paying audience, however, the message was crystal clear. It instantly shattered the long-held illusion that Mykelti was the definitive chosen one, the bridge over the troubled waters of the Brown family divide. If the patriarch of the family wouldn't even acknowledge a heartfelt Christmas gift featuring his own grandchildren, it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the communication lines were completely dead. The subscribers weren't just angry, they felt incredibly foolish. They had been paying top dollar for months, funding Tony and Mykelti's lifestyle under the strict belief that this couple held the keys to the Coyote Pass kingdom. Tony's blundering confession revealed that they didn't even have access to the mailbox, let alone the inner workings of Kody and Robin's minds. The gig was officially up, and the mass exodus of paying patrons was about to begin in earnest. But the collapse of their platform wasn't just a byproduct of a severed connection. It was the very public exposure of a deeply rooted behavioral flaw. As the subscribers began pulling their financial support, the conversation surrounding Mykelti and Tony shifted from disappointment to intense scrutiny of their unchecked greed. For years, they had attempted to play both sides of a fractured family, not out of a genuine desire for peace, but for massive financial gain. Insider reports suggest that at its peak, their Patreon was pulling in figures that rivaled their actual television salaries, all built on the monetization of their family's trauma. They were taking highly private, emotionally devastating conversations and slapping a $10 price tag on them. Every tear shed by a sibling, every bitter argument between parents, and every tragic fallout was viewed through the cold, calculating lens of content creation. They weren't peacemakers, they were emotional profiteers. The ethical dilemma of their business model became impossible to ignore. Fans began heavily debating the morality of a daughter selling out her own family members to a rabid internet audience. Exclusive theories began circulating that Mykelti would deliberately provoke conversations with Kody or Robin, acting as a sympathetic sounding board, only to immediately run back to her ring light and camera to broadcast those intimate details to strangers. It was a staggering betrayal of trust, masked as keeping it real with her fans. The psychology behind this is fascinating and deeply flawed. Growing up on reality television severely warped their perception of privacy. To Mykelti and Tony, family secrets weren't things to be protected. They were assets to be liquidated. They believed they could straddle the line indefinitely, smiling in Kody's face while cashing checks funded by people who vehemently despised him. But greed has a funny way of blinding people to the inevitable consequences of their actions. They completely underestimated Kody's immense demand for absolute, unwavering loyalty, and they severely overestimated their own ability to control the narrative. Realizing the walls were rapidly closing in and their primary source of income was hemorrhaging subscribers, Mykelti attempted a desperate pivot. If she could no longer sell the insider access angle, she would switch to a completely different currency: sympathy. Overnight, the tone of her content dramatically shifted. The smug, knowing smiles of the ultimate insider were replaced by tears and solemn declarations of abandonment. Mykelti began playing the victim, leaning heavily into the narrative of a neglected daughter who had tried everything to keep her father in her life, only to be callously tossed aside. She spoke about the deep emotional wounds caused by Kody's distance, painting a tragic picture of a father who abandoned his children for his favorite wife. It was a classic reality TV maneuver. When you lose control of the plot, become the victim of it. However, this failed emotional appeal backfired spectacularly. The audience, now fully aware of the manipulative tactics at play, had absolutely zero sympathy. The pushback was immediate and incredibly fierce. Former fans flooded forums and comment sections, pointing out the glaring inauthenticity of her sudden heartbreak. The consensus was brutal, but entirely fair. How could she expect the public to mourn the loss of a relationship she had spent years actively monetizing? Fans quickly pointed out that she was exactly the one who had packaged and sold his secrets, making her just as untrustworthy and opportunistic as the father she was now crying about. Insider reports suggest that the backlash was so severe that Mykelti was forced to temporarily disable comments on several platforms to stop the bleeding. The audience saw right through the performance. They recognized that her tears weren't falling because she missed her father. They were falling because she was terrified of losing her lucrative lifestyle. She had played a dangerous game of emotional roulette with her family's privacy, and she had finally lost. And the fallout was about to stretch far beyond just a shrinking bank account. The true cost of her actions was slowly coming into focus, revealing a level of isolation that no amount of subscription money could ever fix. The financial ruin of their subscription platform was devastating, but the most glaring issue the audience couldn't look past was the staggering thematic hypocrisy of it all. For years, Mykelti had positioned herself on a towering moral high horse, frequently delivering lengthy sermons to her siblings and her fans about the absolute necessity of forgiveness. She was the one constantly preaching about keeping the peace, urging her bitterly divided family to swallow their pride, look past the blatant favoritism, and maintain a relationship with Kody and Robyn at all costs. She branded herself as the mature, evolved daughter who could rise above the petty reality TV squabbles. But the reality was incredibly dark and entirely contradictory. While she was publicly demanding that her family heal, she was privately, literally profiting off the ongoing destruction of their dynamic. She wasn't building bridges, she was setting up a toll booth to watch them burn. She was charging strangers a monthly fee to listen to her dissect her mother's painful divorces, her siblings' deep-seated traumas, and her father's chaotic outbursts. This core moral failure is what truly turned the tide against her. Fans realized that her calls for family unity were completely hollow because a healed, peaceful Brown family wouldn't generate any Patreon revenue. Drama, division, and pain were the main commodities she was selling. Insider reports suggest that this realization didn't just dawn on the viewing public. It slowly crept into the minds of her own family members. Mykelti thought she was playing an incredibly clever game of 4D chess, keeping Kody happy while simultaneously monetizing his downfall. But she completely failed to realize that playing both sides inevitably leads to being trusted by no one. By treating her family's most vulnerable moments as highly lucrative content, she crossed an invisible line that couldn't simply be uncrossed with a tearful apology video. This brings us to the harsh, devastating reality check of her current isolation. The ultimate tragedy of Mykelti and Tony's grand scheme is the utter loneliness it has produced. The doors to Kody and Robyn's heavily guarded home are firmly shut, entirely locked from the inside. Kody, a man whose ego demands absolute, unwavering loyalty, has permanently iced her out for leaking his secrets. The illusion that she was his favorite, the one exception to his ongoing war with his adult children, has been completely shattered. But the alienation goes much deeper than just her father. Exclusive theories and reports from close family circles indicate that Christine and Janelle's children are actively keeping Mykelti at a very safe, calculated arm's length. And honestly, who can blame them? To her siblings, Mykelti is no longer just a sister. She is a walking, talking microphone. Imagine being a member of that family, trying to navigate the deeply complex, painful fallout of a fractured plural marriage on national television. The last thing you would ever do is confide your true feelings, your private struggles, or your late night frustrations to someone who has a proven track record of placing family secrets behind a $10 paywall. The siblings are acutely aware that any casual venting session, any shared secret, or any private family text thread could easily become the headlining topic of Mykelti and Tony's next exclusive live stream. Because of this, she has been entirely cut out of the inner circle. She is left without a single, solid alliance in a family that used to pride itself on its massive, interconnected support system. She is an island, entirely isolated by her own unchecked ambition. The Patreon cash grab has backfired in the most spectacular, permanent way possible, bringing Mykelti to the absolute point of no return. She and Tony gambled their real-life relationships for temporary internet clout and a few years of easy money, completely miscalculating the long-term cost. As the subscriber count continues to plummet and the once lucrative empire crumbles into dust, Mykelti is forced to face a profound and terrifying realization. Trading her family's trust for a monthly subscription fee didn't make her powerful. It didn't make her the ultimate insider, and it certainly didn't make her the peacemaker she claimed to be. It just made her completely, undeniably alone. The cameras will eventually stop rolling. The reality TV fame will inevitably fade, and the paying subscribers will move on to the next major scandal. And when that happens, all Mykelti will have left is the quiet echo of the bridges she burned for a paycheck. This entire situation is a wild reminder of how toxic the pursuit of online fame can be, especially when it comes at the expense of the people who are supposed to be closest to you. But I want to know exactly what you think about this massive downfall. Did Mykelti and Tony bring this entirely on themselves, or was it just a matter of time before Kody cut them off anyway? Drop your thoughts, your exclusive theories, and your opinions down in the comments below, because I read every single one of them. If you found this deep dive into the darker side of reality television fascinating, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on any of our upcoming exposés and deep dives. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.